divinely channeled message, which I'm recording right after I pulled my energetic and current event cards for the week. And they referenced this card from my card reading. So I'm going to give you a chance to see that. It is beautiful card, humbleness. It says modesty and humility. That's not really what they're talking about in this message, which this channeled message download, which you'll see. They're talking about the foot washing that's going on. And honestly, when I pulled this for the reading, I really didn't appreciate, and they're really pointing out to me now, get that in there. You can see the little energy, see the little energy exchange right here. It's signified in the painting by kind of an upward spiral. So just take a minute. If you're here for a channel message, I think you would appreciate noticing the nuances that they're pointing out in the card now that I've completed actually they're on the hand. They're right here on the hand. Hopefully I pointed the right spot. That's beautiful for me as a reader, because I didn't notice that before, and I didn't even notice it till I picked it up to show it to you, but that is entirely what this downloaded message is about. And thank you, Spirit, for that confirmation. And there's energy in the person doing the washing and in receiving the washing. So that's really cool. And you'll understand why in a minute. Okay, so let's get to it. Normally I edit out a lot of the and. They use and a lot. They just use run-on sentences with and when I'm getting these messages, and I left a lot of them in this time because they seem to signify a paragraph break, which I don't think I've noticed before. So that's just the way it comes through. So there are a lot of ands. And also in the specific downloaded message, there's a lot of POV changes, which is point of view, because they would show me something clairvoyantly, and then they put me inside the image, and then they put me outside the image. So I did my best to add some cues around that so that you could experience the transmission like I did. And again, this will be up on my Substack if you'd rather read it. These are very deep and beautiful, and I think there's a benefit to maybe reading them if that's your jam. So, all right, this is the channel message from my spirit team and God Source, and Jesus makes an appearance on June the 20th. So this is from me, Susannah. God Source, you're showing me the well. And in my mind's eye, I was in what I call my middle space, which is just beyond the clouds. And there has been for years a well there, a circular, like an old-fashioned Middle Eastern well that is, it has rocks built around the hole, and the rocks are probably, I would say, about hip high. And so they showed me this well, and I walked over to it, and I sit down on the ground, and I feel the heat of the stones behind my back from the well, and the heat coming up from the ground. And then I see Jesus, who will sometimes come over and talk to me, and I say, Jesus, come sit with me, create a clean channel for what you would bring forth. And he starts coming forward, and then you're showing me a picture of foot washing card that I pulled, and I am preparing now in my mind's eye a water bath, and you, Jesus, are sitting on the well, smiling gently down at me as you sit above me. And so this is just in preparation. This is just kind of what I saw in the setup. Yeah, and then Jesus says, sitting here looking down at me, what does this act of service mean, the foot washing? Why would someone come into a home and be greeted with a foot bath? What is the significance of the bathing child? It is vulnerable to receive. The it is vulnerable to give and to receive. The foot bathing is vulnerable for both parties. And then my spirit team says, so it's like a zoom out. And yes, where it is a tradition, a known exchange, a known way of doing things, perhaps the energy exchange is lost in routine, as some of your humanity might go to church and lose the thread of the energy of worship and acknowledgement of exchanging with their human cohorts. It is true that in the foot washing, it may just be a routine, but it does not have to be that way. In this moment, we show you the Christ. And so they zoomed me out where the woman and Christ are still sitting where I initially was. The Christ in human form sitting on a wooden bench in a home. And so then we're zoomed into a home, and it's darker, and there's a wooden bench against a wall with dirt on his feet, and a young woman, yes, you, putting his foot into water to wash it. And we zoom you in, as you say, with your clairsentience. I also call that leaning, because it feels like in the astral spheres, in the psychic spheres, it feels like you just kind of lean into an image or a remote view, and I get information clairsentiently. And so we zoom you in, as you say, with your clairsentience to feel the emotions of the moment. How does it feel for the Christ to sit in somewhat embarrassedly, for he knows all the miles that he has been. He knows the sand, the grit, the ick, and they're wanting me to correct this. They're saying for the human Christ. This is Christ in his human form. He knows the sand, the grit, the ick. This is not just dirt on his feet. It is the ick of black tar of all the places that he's been. And it will not be easy to get this off. And yet he sits and does not offer to assist. And this is significant, and it is difficult. It is difficult to accept the act of service. And now we zoom you in on the one doing the foot washing. And we ask you to join her emotionally. And then they took me from a perspective of watching this to actually being on the ground doing the foot washing. Oh, this foot is nasty, you say. It has black gunky stuff. And you use your fingernail to scrape it off, and it causes the Jesus to have a ticklish response. And you say, I'm sorry. And the Christ speaks, and he says, do not be sorry, child, for it is a blessing and an honor that you do this for me. The fact that I have a physical reaction is only my human form. It is more important to discuss the reaction that I have in my spirit, where I initially resist your gift. I initially do not want to accept this act from you, for in accepting this act from you, it makes me vulnerable to accept the help. And we humans are wired, and this is still Christ speaking, so we humans in his human form, it's probably why they want me to add that. Oh, a lot of energy. A lot of energy. And we humans are wired to want to do things on our own, but it is an act of love to accept the help and to accept the service of another, and that is why I bring you to this moment as a foot washer and as the watcher. The washer and the watcher, to set those things separate from each other. And so, child, please continue to remove the dirt from my feet and understand that I say this with gratitude and with humility. And then I say, and this is my point of view again, now I'm back as a young woman washing Christ's feet. I have soap and I have wash between the toes, and there is hair on the toes. And I saw this in my mind's eye. And my feeling is this is not someone well known to me. This is someone I revere. and my hand shakes lightly. And now I dry the foot and I rub a light fragrance, like oil, like a little oil on them. And just on the top, like just on the top around the ankle. And I do the other. And in the lifting of the feet, the Christ gives me some assistance. So this was like I was moving one foot out of the side and the other foot up, and instead of just being a dead weight, he kind of lifts his foot to help me. And in the exchange of him lifting his leg to put it in the bowl, there is an acceptance of the gift, but not a demand. And I wash the other foot, dry the foot, set aside the bowl, and I sit back on my knees and look up and say, "It is done." And the Christ says to me, "Thank you for this act of service. Thank you for allowing me to sit and not worry about the condition of my tired feet, for they are sore and now they feel better, and you have alleviated some of my pain with your gift. You have also opened my heart to you, and we have exchanged energy in this way, for I have accepted your gift as you have given it." And I just want to call you to what I pointed out in this card, where there's energy coming off of the hands and the feet in an energy exchange. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Thank you, God. Thank you for this confirmation of that this is the message that you wanted to bring through today. However confusing, nonsensical it feels to me, as I learn to reduce my human part and allow. Oh my gosh, there's a parallel, isn't there, in the foot washing to give and receive, right? So as I am learning to allow, to accept, also a very serious energy exchange, there's a trust, and they're going to talk about that here next. And then I say, what else, God Source, would you say? What would you have the people listening to this message here today? And Spirit, this is not the Christ, this is my Spirit team energy. In this moment, we call you to the parts of yourselves that are programmed to resist an act of service and grace and love. The parts of yourself which are fortified as a castle with a moat around it to not be in communion and harmony. Can you feel the difference in energy? It may not come forward with just the words, but when I'm receiving these words, the energy changes, and this actually gets fast, like much faster. So fast, in fact, that I had to switch from hand notes to a dictation mic some time ago, but this gets pretty fast when Spirit is talking in this energy. And we ask you, as someone offers to help you, no matter what it is, to accept that offer and then look for a way to exchange it to someone else, or even, yes, directly back to the other person, which is in fact a more uncomfortable exchange. We call you to this uncomfortable energy exchange in this moment because it is significant. It is significant for the wiring of your nervous systems, your psychological systems, your mental systems. We ask you to really see those in front of you, the humans in your sphere. How many times do you miss an offer of assistance? How many times do you miss an offer to give assistance? And yes, now your human, me, Susannah, is saying that it's dangerous, and we understand that we understand that it is the evolution of your human forms. We understand that the wiring we speak of keeps you safe. The fight or flight, all the things that have protected you from the time that you were only hunter-gatherers subsisting in caves and jungles and in very marginal situations where you were not the highest on the food chain. And excuse me, and I have a lot of energy, a lot of energy comes up through my mouth. We understand that this wiring exists for good reason, but in this time we would like to call your attention to it so that you would at least recognize it and understand that it is not always needed. We leave you with the thought only to look for opportunities to give and receive assistance, and understand that receiving is often more difficult with your human wiring than the receiving, than the giving. For as you receive and accept something, you understand that you may be asked for. We leave you with the thought only to look for opportunities to give and receive assistance, and understand that receiving is often more difficult for your human wiring. For as you receive and accept something, you understand that you may be asked or you may owe a debt. And we wish to speak to this debt credit system that humanity has established. For where there is a debt, there is a sense of a lack of control over one's destiny. In your future, someone may show up and demand the debt be paid, and you would have to honor it. You would have to drop other things which may be more important, more critical to your daily life in order to honor the debt. It is for this reason that you resist the giving of grace. You do not want to be tied into an emotional contract. And we understand that this is wise in many situations, and we do not ask you to forego those opportunities or to lower your barriers and your boundaries to give it over to people who would misuse your trust, but only we ask you to look for the angels and the helpers which may be coming, and you will know them. And I have to say, this has a bit of an otherworldly feel, like they may look like humans, but they're angelic or otherworldly forms. And they're just showing me they may begin an interaction with us with the simple exchange. And they're showing me the story I've told before about my little local Aldi's, where we give each other the quarter back and forth, or we just give each other the cart. It feels like, oh, that's really deep. And it has a lot of energy that if an angelic realm wanted to interact with us, they wouldn't come waving flags or spaceships or whatever we think they might. They might come as the person in a parking lot offering us a cart and not taking our quarter. And what if, instead of just lowering our gaze, taking the cart and getting on with our grocery shopping, what if we stop and say thank you? How are you doing today? And invite a conversation. That's what this feels like. Because it feels like all we need is the tiniest entree, the tiniest I'm open for a further help to come through. So this actually feels like a blueprint, a timetable, a example of how to be open to divine assistance in a human form. And they just showed me the whole movie play out like in the Aldi's parking lot. And it doesn't have to be Aldi's for you. It can be, I don't know. But if you're just aware, it feels like if you just take a little nugget of, I'm going to try to notice when someone is opening a door. They're showing me someone opening a door for someone else. Just put a pin in it. Maybe pay attention to that in the next coming weeks. Let's see. Okay. Anyway, where were we? But only we ask you to look for the angels and the helpers which may be coming, and you will know them, for they will have good energy, and the exchange of giving and receiving won't be a very small thing. This is all we ask now for the small seed of trust and love between humanity in this moment. And indeed, as you have said in your cards, it is not helpful to look far beyond your valleys, but to tend to those immediately in your hands. This is all for now. Amen, amen. So be it. Yeah, there you go. So, that's all for this week. If you've enjoyed this, please support me in whatever way feels meaningful for you, and I'll be back next week. Thanks so much.